The white room at the Universitat de Cumsta was colder than usual that morning. I stood at the far end, gripping the worn handles of my old folio, pretending that the creases along my knuckles were not a map of my anxiety. My mother had ironed my white shirt for this. I could still smell the detergent over the dust and turpentine. 3 professors sat before me at the table. Dr. Richter, all steel gray hair and jaw, thumbed through my portfolio as if searching for a reason to dismiss me quickly. Professor Weber surveyed me with pursed lips, her glasses slipping down her nose. The third, a younger adjunct I'd never met, was peering at his phone, more interested in messages than in the trembling prospective student before him. My paintings were arrayed across the blank wall behind me, blurred cityscapes of Berlin under neon rain. Portraits of my brother and sister, their faces bent into vague hope and private shame. A forest clearing under the rumored ghost light of autumn. Self-portraits refracted in window glass. Only oil and canvas, but for me, survival. Dr. Richter closed the portfolio. His glance was surgical. Herr Fleischer, we thank you for your application. A draft from a cracked window rippled the sheets of my statement on the table. I imagined them closing a coffin with my name etched just beneath the surface. Professor Weber began, "Your technical approach is self-taught, yes?" I nodded, and she continued, "There's expressiveness here, certainly. But you must understand, this university looks for refinement potential. Yes, but also foundation. Have you considered a preparatory year? Perhaps at the Volkshochschule?" "We see so many portfolios," Richter followed. "Individuality is commendable, but our program is rigorous and—" He paused, picking his words as if extracting splinters. "I do not see a clear conceptual through line." "What would you say your work is about?" "My family," I started, feeling my accent thicken and the eyes of the 3 bore into my chest, "and Berlin. The lives I see, disconnection and—" The adjunct looked up. "Thank you, Jonas. We'll be in touch." The sound of my name, formal and sharp, hung in the space between us. I gathered my paintings as the committee conferred in murmurs. The call came 2 days later. They appreciated my initiative, but my work lacked cohesion and academic merit. Another year, perhaps, if I developed a firmer conceptual voice. I heard my mother on the phone as I sat on the steps by our apartment, the light swallowing the city in its usual Berlin gray. "9. He didn't get in," she said, slightly too loud, as if the neighbors needed confirmation. I pulled my jacket tighter, feeling my name trailing out the windows, drifting down the courtyard where children kicked footballs against concrete. My mother tried not to let disappointment leak through, but her sighs lengthened in the kitchen, and she scrubbed the dishes harder than necessary. My father, when he looked at me, was gentle but hollowed out, a man hammered by decades of factory shifts in Marsan. My sister, Clara, wanted to help, but she was 19. Hunched over law books, certain she'd never leave the city unless dragged, my older brother, Tim, was the only one who tried to make a joke, slapping my shoulder with too much force. "At least you're not a DJ like half your friends. Maybe next year, Ja." But the next week, the word spread across our neighborhood. My big university try had failed. Our uncle called to say, "At least you tried, Jonas. You should get a trade, eh? Nothing wrong with having a proper job." I heard my father agree. The guys at the Spady across the road greeted me with "Morgen, Monet," with just enough laughter to wound. I smiled, said nothing, and around the block learned the architecture of their jeering. Stronger when you look their way, briefer when you do not. I worked my shifts as a dishwasher, and then, when that restaurant closed, as a bicycle courier. I painted in the evenings, hunched over the kitchen table, the paint fumes fighting the smell of frying onions. I stopped showing anyone my work unless somebody pried, and even then, I'd simply say, just sketches, nothing special. Years smudged into each other. I painted at night. I sold 2 pieces at a local cafe, enough for a handful of tubes and a canvas. Someone stole both a week later. I felt as if the world itself was laughing each time I picked up a brush, but I couldn't leave it. It was as necessary as breath. Even if those around me saw it as a hobby, rusting in the corners of our flat. Every few months, I'd try for a local exhibition, showing up with rolled canvases, my smile forced, watching the established artists shake hands, their families gathering with flutes of Prosecco. A few times I managed to tack my work onto the walls and saw strangers pause, lean in, sometimes mutter. Once, after a street show, a stylish man with a foreign accent pressed a card into my hand. I kept it for weeks, fingerprints smudged, but never called, the fear of another letdown a weight across my chest. Clara moved out, finished law school, and started with a firm neomida. My brother traveled as a tour manager for a punk band, falling in and out of flats and favor. I stayed in my parents' apartment, the smallest room, its walls lined with my canvases, unseen, mostly, except for me and the moths. One night, not long after my 29th birthday, I painted myself as a crow perched over Tempelhofer Feld. The city spread beneath in oil smears. I posted it online, my first public post in years, just to see if I could stand the silence. The next morning, my notifications rattled the phone off the bedside table. A stranger, apparently a curator for a small Kreuzberg gallery, asked me to meet. I went, sweating through my only blazer. The gallery space was whitewashed and echoing, the walls punctuated by kinetic abstract works I could never afford. The curator, Colombe, French-Algerian in a scarf as wild as her hair, met me at the door, her hands strong and warm. She studied my images on a tablet. There's something there, something personal, biting. She grinned. But not too soft, you do not ask permission. For the first time in years, I did not flinch from the compliment. We talked about Berlin, family, loss, the taste of defeat. She picked 5 pieces for a group show, offered a modest sum. I went home, heart firing in unknown directions, and painted as if chased. At the show, the gallery buzzed with a crowd entirely other students with strange hair, collectors, exiles, the soft blur of languages. My mother, awkward in a blue dress she'd borrowed, walked through the gallery at my side. She sipped white wine and nodded at each painting, lips pressed tight. We stood in front of my portrait of Tim mouth bent around a secret joke, eyes skeptical. You made him look tired, she noted. He is tired, I said, and squeezed her hand. That night, the pieces sold. Modestly, but they sold. I felt a strangeness, validation, but also suspicion, as if some trick was being played on me. I painted more. The shows followed. Group at first, then a solo in a Friedrichshain basement, light bulbs flickering overhead. The reviews caught me off guard. Blogs, then a short write-up in Tagesspiegel. Jonas Fleischer, the people we could be. I read it in secret, and then, eventually, let my family see. The old crowd at the Späti shifted to our artist, eh, Jonas? With an edge of envy. Old men who once spat at kids skateboarding now nodded when I passed. My uncle called again. So, you're on the internet now. Not bad. Do you get paid for that? I did. For a while, things fell into place, as if Berlin itself relented. The city's old hostility faded. Or maybe I just tuned it out, too tired to care. Years passed, 10 since the university rejection. By the time the gallery and Mitte called, we're interested in a mid-career retrospective. The city council's arts committee will be present. Are you available for a meeting next week? The room was not so different from the white committee space of old. But this time, Colombe was there beside me, hand resting on my shoulder. We drank bitter coffee from tiny porcelain cups. Another committee, this time all antiseptic suits and angular glasses.